Welcome to this edition of the People's Playbook podcast. I'm excited today. I have been able to and have the benefit of having Kelly Lefebvre in my life. She now leads and is the CEO of a company called Go Direct Solutions. And I wanted her on the show because I know her style and I know how big of a part she plays in culture, in leading teams, in creating momentum, and just doing the right thing. So, with that, Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jason. Great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too. You said something in our conversation just prior to actually starting to record, and you said leaders can't be part of the chaos. And it actually, when you were saying it, I was just like, wow, what a strong statement to say. And we're going to start with that, as I told you, right? So when
Okay.
you say that leaders can't be part of the chaos, take me down that road. What does that mean?
Well, I think that, generally speaking, there are ups and downs in every business, and inevitably something is going to break or go off the rails and or go wrong. And I really think that that's that point where you've got a team that is, that's dedicated and passionate about what they do, and their first instinct is always to fix it. So I really creates a sense of chaos amongst the team, right? And that becomes infectious. So I think that part of that, and again, as I said to you, it was something I had to learn, right? To be
Yeah.
able to step back, understand that there's an issue or there's a challenge, and it may be really bad, right? But you can't be part of as a leader, you can't be part of, perpetuating that chaos. You have to step out of it and, identify what you can impact, right?
Yeah.
How can we change the course of the outcome? And sometimes that's not possible. So what are the low steps or the calm steps to be able to say, here's our issue, here's what we need to do, and here's where, we're aiming to land at. So it's especially in this business is that there's so many moving parts, there's so many people, there's so many, inflection points within that something can go off the rails.
Yeah.
And it really is having that calmness to say, okay, everybody stop, assess, plan, and execute. So I think that that's been a really really game changer for me in the way that I look at problems. My mind would automatically go to, oh my God, this is really bad. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
We can only affect in that moment what we can affect. So rather than, adding to the chaos, it's really about stepping back and stepping off, taking the foot off the gas and saying, okay, how do we proceed? So it's especially this time of year for us is that our business really ramps up over the next 3 months, and it's people will it is dangerous to respond in the moment,
Yes.
in that from a point of anger or a point of frustration, and it inevitably will pile on to the issue at hand. So
Yeah. I love how you were very authentic and vulnerable when you said, "Hey, and I had to teach myself to not be part of the chaos." Right?
yeah,
That as a leader is just so authentic to say because I think as leaders we've all been part of the chaos sometimes and
yeah,
and 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 as a leader we're always on stage and somebody's always watching you, and whether you think they are or not, they're seeing if you're rolling your eyes, they're
yep,
seeing if if your arms are crossed or if you're kind of looking, if you have that panicked look on your face
right.
while you're getting the message, right? So I love how vulnerable you were when you said that. You spoke about change, and which was kind of part of the chaos, and your sector, your industry has gone through a load of
Lot of
change over
change.
the last few years. I can just imagine, even pre-COVID, it's a moving industry. During COVID, it's absolutely crazy, right? And
It
then
was.
coming out of COVID and whatnot, and leading through that change. How do you keep people motivated and grounded through all that change?
Yeah, I think, COVID was a really interesting point in, to be part of supply chain, right? In the sense that it was unpredictable. There was, craziness or chaos going on in short-term decision making, which actually drove a lot of um, volume unplanned for volume into that whole supply chain network. And we saw a lot of 3PLs or distribution groups pop up and or expand. And I think on the back end of that, there's been a lot of attrition, of people exiting out of it, having to downsize, so on and so forth. So really for us, I would have said 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we've got a busy period at the end of the business year, October, November, December. But really for us, it really is at full speed for most of the year now. So we're not seeing that downturn that we used to see kind of in January, February. So for us, it's really about enabling people to have the right tools to do their job. So tools are a big thing. How do we create efficiencies, automation, so on and so forth? But I think it's really around communication. Here's what to expect. And we try to do our best to be preemptive versus being reactive, right? And it doesn't always work. We've got a client who told us yesterday that they're, going to increase their storage requirement. So this is like physical footprint by threefold, which is
Yeah.
massive, over the next 3 months. Right. So we know that that's going to strain that team, one of
Yeah.
our operations team, so it's how do we create a plan so that we we analyze the what ifs, right? Or the potential, where things can go wrong and come up with a really strong plan that takes some pressure off of that, because inevitably our business is going to change. That is the nature of what we do. We deal with multiple different clients. We've got multiple different products, multiple different, deadlines, outcomes, regulatory compliance pieces as well. So communication's number one. So we try to give them the tools to do the job the most efficient way that we can. And then it's really around communicating and making sure that they understand the process and the plan.
I love that. Yeah. Communication, when we over communicate, we build trust. They go hand in hand. If I communicate with you, it's because I trust you. If I don't communicate, it's probably lack of trust, but those are two pillars
Yeah.
of the business for sure. Right?
Yeah.
It just gets people on the right page. And when we don't communicate enough, people start assuming, or they start guessing, and that could be a big problem if they do that. Right. So yeah, I love how, you mentioned, you literally probably said it 3 or 4 times. So it's obvious that it's a key kind of metric for you on how we communicate with the team. You've had to make some tough decisions over the last few years. How do you, I guess, what value guides you to help you make those tough decisions?
Yeah, obviously there's a few, right? So I think that first and foremost, we try to approach everything with our customer in the front and center, right? So we recognize that we are literally a service. We don't build widgets or gadgets or sell a product. We provide a service. And it is really a trust-based relationship, meaning that we are in a situation where we have multiple different groups handling their product, and we are really the last step between them and their consumer. So that brand experience really is front and center for us, that we embrace that for our clients as if it was our own. So, but the other thing that we want to recognize too is how do we grow a group of employees that are really capable, right? And encourage them to be entrepreneurial, which is a really core value of ours, and problem solve and take accountability and ownership within this kind of really tight environment where we need to make sure that we're putting the customer first. So I think that it's from a decision making process, we kind of have to weigh the two, and then we obviously have shareholders that we have to answer to too. So it's really around trying to get our employees engaged at the client level. So we really encourage that. We love it when our clients come in and talk to our on the floor employees and really make them feel part of the importance of what they're doing, right? Because it really is. I mean, we really are kind of that last touch point between our brands and
Yeah.
their consumers. So I think that really when we look at it, we look at our people, are we doing the right thing for our people? 2, are we doing the right thing for our clients? And then 3 is, are we building a successful, profitable business that is sustainable? Because at the end of the day, if we're not doing that, we can't satisfy the people and we can't satisfy the value proposition that we hold.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just kind of thinking about the size of your company. It's big, and you have multiple departments, and you have multiple people from departments who all probably think their department's the most important department in the world, right? Nobody
Yeah.
else is more important, right? How do you get those people in such a big company to? How do you align them so they stay
Yeah.
motivated and manage them differently so they realize, hey, we're all kind of going for the same thing, even though I'm in charge of this department. What's your
Yeah.
process on that?
Well, I think we've got two. I'm going to go back and we put the client first, right? So I think that if we're all aligned in terms of what our role is and making sure that we are living up to our promises and commitments, then that's kind of the glue that holds our organization together. Again, we are there to service our customers and everybody plays a role in that. And that's so it's really making sure that we all understand what that alignment is and what the goals are, right? So we're very clear on service level agreements, timelines, so on and so forth. So we probably over communicate that a little bit. We also, provide a lot of feedback to the team. They know exactly how we're performing in the eyes of our clients. So I think that is kind of the glue. But the other piece is we every Monday morning, regardless whether we have a lot to say or very little, we have a very senior management meeting where we all get aligned about the week ahead. So it really is setting priorities, dealing with issues, dealing with opportunities. And we all hear the same thing. So there's this, our jobs then is to push that back down into our own departments and making sure that we're all communicating that same message and supporting one another, right? Because I think a lot of times that it's easy for us to have isolation within our industry just based geographically where we are. We've got locations in the US, we've got locations in Canada, and innately those are different environments and they're self-contained for the most part environments where, I remember going down to our Columbus facility and they couldn't grasp it that there was this Go Direct north of the border that had existed before that. Right. So it's really around how do we make sure that we are, not only aligned in our goals and our values, but how do we make them feel connected? We do a lot of leveraging of individuals in our different locations and moving them around and exposing them to the different facilities and the different teams that we have within those facilities. But we've also created a really strong process playbook, let's call it, where if we were to move you from one facility to another, the products may look different, the customer mix may look different, but fundamentally our processes are the same. So when we do that, there's this united front on how we do the work. And we're very collaborative amongst the different locations and leveraging the best practices that each of them kind of uncover or have been able to develop based on, some of the clients. So we do a lot of knowledge sharing, so on and so forth. But it is difficult. And I'll tell you, we often have opposing viewpoints. Sales always over promises and operations always puts the brakes on, right? So it's really, we had to work really hard at kind of allowing the sales process to happen organically, but injecting the operations team in there too to make sure that what sales is saying is aligned with what we're capable of delivering. And then when we go to execute that, our ops team is familiar, that they understand, and so on and so forth. So a lot of communication, but a lot of planning, and that really starts at that senior level. And to the point about that Monday morning meeting, we don't we have a block of time in our calendars, but some days it goes an hour and some Mondays it goes two. So we're really committed to making sure that is happening at that level and everybody's very clear, and then we can drill it down into the individual teams, and hopefully there's a good understanding. There is good prep time for what to be expected, so on and so forth, and it seems to be working. So we're fortunate that we've got a good senior leadership team that's very committed and very, very cooperative in the way that we work together. Very collaborative.
I love that. You've, just talking about leaders, you've had the ability to work with many different leaders, and both that you've reported into, that you've worked side by side with, and whatnot. If you look at all the leaders, what kind of leadership inspires you the most?
It's a great question. I've had a couple of really good mentors. So when I think back at my career, obviously we started out at Labatt together. We had a great leader in Paul Walker. He was somebody who really was really a nurturer, right? So he really tried to bring out the best, provide us with the tools and the skill sets that we would need for later on in our careers. But he was very nurturing, and I think that was he was very kind, probably to a fault sometimes, but he definitely had our best interest at heart. So I think that from that, I would walk away and say, you know what, that's a piece I would hope that I would be able to carry. That I can identify talent and be able to nurture that talent, have the patience to nurture the talent, right? And
I
I
love
think
that.
that that's a really admirable thing. The other thing, and there's small anecdotes pieces along my career. Bruce Elliott used to come down from the fourth floor, and we were working at Labatt on
Yeah.
Islington, and he would know everybody's name. That was the one thing that really impressed me. He knew everybody's name, and he knew something about them.
Yeah.
So even though he sat at the very top of that organization back in the day, he was really great in making those human connections. And then when I moved to TC, I had a phenomenal mentor, Nori Meth, who was very, very driven. So very, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but he was very driven and he was very firm, but he was fair. And I think that that's another admirable quality as well. When you did a really good job, he was the first to commend you on that, but he
Yeah.
held you very accountable, right? And I think that really made an impact on me, is that you need to be able to trust the people that you put into position to carry out the duties that they're responsible for. And you can't be afraid to call them out when they're not doing it. So when I look at our organization today, I mean, really it's we want to embrace that entrepreneurial spirit, right? We are a company that grew from one location and, really driven on off of kind of, lean operations and everybody wears multiple
Owners
hats.
fighting, right?
Right, exactly. So we really want folks that can step up and say, I'm accountable for this. And this goes right down to the, associates working on the floor at the kind of the lowest level of the organization. Is we want them to care, right? We
Yeah.
want them to be passionate about what they do. And we want them to be, take pride in what they're doing. So I think accountability is part of that equation, because
Huge.
yeah, you can't, in order to reward a job really well done, you need to be able to set parameters around what qualifies a job really well done. So, I mean, I think that those are really strong qualities that I took out from kind of different stages of people that I've worked with. But I
Right.
think
Something for
candidness is,
everybody.
yeah, absolutely. But I think candidness is really, I say to people, you may not like it, but what you see is what you get. I am very transparent. I'm very clear on what my expectations are. And I think that is, I think people would say that I'm not afraid to voice when I'm happy and proud of the job that we've done, and when I'm not, right? So I think that's something I admire. I love it when we can get to the point, deal with the issue at hand, and come away with resolve.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you ooze your emotion, Kelly, and I think that's a huge, again, a strength that you have as a leader, right? I don't have to guess kind of what you're thinking or what's on your mind. You'll tell me.
Yeah,
That's a but
good or
that's a
bad, good or bad.
Yeah, but that's a great thing, right? So you talked about knowing people and you talked about, different tiers in the organization. How do you spot future leaders and what do you
Yeah.
do to get them to kind of where you need them to be?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because we deal with all kinds of different skill sets, right? We deal with from
Yeah.
everything from, unskilled labor, truly, to folks that are IT folks that are very intellectually brilliant.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's different things that I look at different levels, but amongst, the one thing that I will say is accountability. Really, people that are willing to take that extra step, no matter what level of the organization that they're in, having the drive to say, I see something that's not right. I'm willing to take the step and to fix it. Right. So I think that is, those people are really, really revered within our organization, and we can build on that. We've got several people that we have actually taken from the floor like literally at that unskilled labor, and built them up to be fairly significant level managers within our organization. And once we recognize that, we can work with it, right?
Yeah.
With a lot of this, we can teach the skill set. But to have the characteristics of passion and the ability to take ownership and accountability and frankly problem solve. I see in the next generation coming up, so probably similar to our kids' age, is that it's interesting. I'm not going to definitively say that I've come to the conclusion that they somehow lost that ability to solve problems.
Yeah.
But it is something we're going to have to coach. I find that is a gap in kind of that early 20s, early 30s type of individual where they don't want the accountability and frankly they don't want the stress of trying to problem solve it. So so when we see those two skill sets, that's something we latch onto right away because it is interesting, the shift of kind of the next generation coming through. How do we prepare them to be future leaders? And sometimes it's starting with some of the really fundamental skill sets that I think somehow got lost along the way.
Yeah. And that's a very direct statement to say, and it's evident we are leading a different generation now, for sure.
Yes, yes.
One of the things you said there, it's funny, anytime I talk to a CEO or a leader in any company, they all say the exact same thing, which you just doubled down on as well. It's spotting those leaders and those people that just say, hey, give it to me. Like, let me try it. I'll
Right.
jump in. I just spoke to Lindsay Wilson from Molson, and she said, some people will say, hey, I don't even know this and I don't know it, but I'll try it and let me kind of be part of the team. And isn't that
Yeah,
amazing? It's so refreshing when we actually see that, right?
it
And
is.
that's,
It is.
yeah, because I believe, hey, if you're going to put time into yourself, I'll put some time into you for sure,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. That you
Yeah.
can't teach. That
No.
drive you can't teach. The
No.
skills you can teach.
Yeah.
The tactical skills you can teach, right?
Yeah.
It is that those characteristics, the passion, the drive, the curiosity. I will tell
Curiosity.
you,
Yeah.
curiosity is a really remarkable characteristic as well. Somebody who says, "Huh, I don't know if that's the best way to do that. Maybe what if we did it this way?" Or I've
Yeah.
been thinking about this. Those people I have a lot of time for. And, I absolutely have an open door policy. I think probably
Yeah.
too much sometimes, but, I will stop my day if somebody has really thought something through and said, I think I've got a good idea. What do you think about it? I've got a lot of time for that.
Yeah, and when you say people say, "Hey, should we be doing it this way?" We get so many great ideas from people that are in our organization. And
Yes,
sometimes we're looking outside the organization and we're reading this and we're going to this course and we're doing all these things, but you could just talk to that one guy on the floor and say, "Hey, how do you think we should do this?" And he or she will say, "Yeah, all you need to do is this." And they're right
right?
because they live it every day and they
Every
know it
day.
every day. And if we actually just go to them and say, "Hey, what are some great things that we can do to improve this company that you
Yeah,
see as being part of the company? What can we
yeah,
do here?" Right? So awesome stuff. If you
yeah.
look back and hey, you've led many teams, we all have, and you look back and you think, I wish I could take that back. What is
Mm.
one of the
Oh,
leadership mistakes that you learned from the most in your
yeah.
journey to where you are now?
Yeah, this one I can answer pretty quickly. I actually had a really pinnacle point because, and I mean this in all sincerity, is
Yeah,
that when I was a mid-level manager at TC, I hadn't learned the don't be part of the chaos rule. I
yeah,
actually was the driver of the chaos, meaning I was aggressive, I was hard, I don't want to use the word a dictator, but it was very much, I think that I came from a point of overcompensation where being and my career emanated through, at that time it's changing, right, but a male dominated environment. I think that once I started to move up the ladder, I always felt like I had something to prove, and people would tell me that I would needed to soften my approach, and to me that was a sign of weakness. Softening my approach was a sign of weakness, and they were right. I mean, I wasn't getting the response, I wasn't getting the respect. And, I was spinning my wheels and saying, why am I not moving forward? Why am I not moving forward? I'm the best candidate. I'm the best candidate. And it really was, I went to one of these leadership courses. TC sent me on a leadership course. And we had to do some, predictive, you have to answer the questions and they're going to tell you about yourself. And I'm pretty good at being able to figure out what I want the answer to be, right? Some of them are fairly intuitive. If you pick the sharp edge versus the soft bunny, that it's going to say that you're more aggressive and driven if you pick the sharp edge, right? So, but this one was really different, and it was really hard to kind of manipulate. But basically, came back and said that I was operating in the exact opposite fashion that was innate to me. So I was a nurturing leader. I was a compassionate person. I wanted to be engaged with people and I wanted them to engage me. And, the one thing that was very evident is that I like to be in control versus like to be controlled. So that didn't change, but there was a softer way for me to be able to, I'm going to take back the word soft. There was a more effective way for me to, articulate what my expectations were, a more beneficial way to nurture and grow that team, and a much more effective way to solve problems. And it took me until my mid 30s to learn that. And when I learned it, it was like, moment where it was actually emotional for me because it was interesting in my personal life. I was very much that person, but in my professional life, I wasn't. And when I recognized that and made that change, things changed for me. Opportunities opened up. I grew as a leader. I grew as a boss, if I can say that. But we got better results. Not at the end of the day, all the way around.
So authentic how you just took me down that road. That's an incredible story, Kelly. Yeah, that is wow. That is being incredibly self-aware of how you're coming across and self-awareness. And I talk to leaders about this all the time. It's not just knowing how I behave, it's knowing how my behaviors affect others. Right?
Yeah.
And you just went down that journey yourself, which is phenomenal. How do you stay grounded as a leader? Sure, you have your leadership team, I know, but how do you, like, when you're just saying, man, because it's lonely at the top, how do you say, man, I kind of got to shield my team from this right now? How do you stay grounded and just kind of motivated as a leader? And who do you go to? Like, what's your process?
So I think we've got a really unique senior management structure where we really operate as peers, right? So, and I think that is we're very supportive of one another. So I actually do have I'm very fortunate. I've got places to go when things get complex or challenging. So I've got two people that are very integral in my thought process and helping me work through pieces of the business or the whole business, the total viewpoint of the business. So I'm really fortunate there. But I will tell you the thing that grounds me the most is we spend a lot of time actually doing the work. So what I mean by that is which I can't help it, I'm still very much involved in the sales team. So that's still the best part of what I do. I grew up in that sales and marketing side and I still love it. Customers are the best thing that I do all day long. So I'm still very, very engaged in that. But, we'll put on our little safety vests and go out to the back and we'll actually pick and pack orders. Right. So it's very cathartic. I actually find it's really amazing in this role to start something and finish it and say, I did X amount and I did them all right. Right. So I love that. I'm a little bit competitive. That hasn't left. I love it when I'm the fastest, best at it. But it really gives us a really great, you said, how do you know what the opportunities are when you don't do the work? So we really have a senior management team that's very engaged at all different levels of the business, right down to going out and physically doing kind of the lowest common denominator within our organization. So, and if the team's behind, we'll go out and help, or if we're trying to solve for something. And sometimes it's just you have a light day and you go out there. But it's amazing, to your point, is that, to be able to go out, learn a little bit about our employees, engage with them, hear what their struggles are, hear their ideas, so I actually really, really enjoy that part of our business. And it's nice because we're attached to all of our facilities, but it's, and it's fun to do it in our different facilities, right? Where, you get to tell our story. So I think that's a really big thing too, is that, we get to go out and actually talk to our employees about our story, why they should be proud of what they're doing, what their work the meaningfulness of their work. So I love doing that. It is, and then, it creates that pathway of communication. So going back to that, I know that's where we started, but really there is, I have all kinds of people that work for us that, will come up and they'll say, I hear in Ontario, or I hear in Ohio, they don't have to wear safety shoes. Why do we have to wear safety shoes? Right. And I'm like, no, 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 you've got that. It's wrong. Everybody wears safety shoes. Right. So it's being able to have that communication on a very informal level
Yeah.
that I think, is really beneficial for us and for them. So I love doing that.
This is my one non-negotiable leadership principle value that I stand
Mhm.
by. Non-negotiable. What would that be?
Yeah, I think honestly, so I kind of have a couple of rules in engagement, right? So it's how we engage with one another. I'm okay for anybody can tell me I'm wrong. I think if we're not challenging the business on a daily basis, right, then we're not doing our job. Like we need to challenge how do we do things better? How do we get better? Right. So I'm absolutely good. You can come and tell me I have no idea what I'm talking about. I've got two rules of engagement, and one is that we come to it with respect for one another. So we need to take out, it's not personal. It is we need to address. We're looking at it from a business perspective, and the second one is that we're not coming to create a problem or exploit a problem. We're coming to find a solution. So I have time all day for those two. If you're challenging the business because you want to make it better, and two, you're coming at it with the expectation that we're going to solve it. That I have time for that all day long. So those are the passive aggressiveness, the lack of desire, the desire to create a problem and manifest issues. I don't have any time for that. I've got zero time for that. So I think that would be my one. How we engage with one another it's not negotiable for me.
Listen, I know you have a busy day, and I appreciate all the time you've given me. I have one last question before I let you
Yeah.
get back to your day, and thank you for being so generous with your time. Um, if we talked about the next generation and we talked about future leaders. If you had to say, here's my one piece of advice for a young future
Mm.
leader, what
Yeah.
would you say to that person to say, hey, I hope this helps you out? What would that piece of advice be?
Oh, and I can say this kind of with the lens of being a mom as well with kids at
Yeah,
this age, right? So the one thing I will say is that they've got to get engaged,
yeah,
right? So I would put my hand up, as you mentioned, and say, I will do that. I know it's not my job description, but I'd love to get involved in that. How can I help? And I will tell you, if you are actively looking for those opportunities, somebody's going to say, "Do you know what? I do need some help. If you can do this for me." And I think it does three things. One is that it gives you a different perspective of the business potentially that you're working on. Two, it shows your engagement and your dedication and your desire to grow. And I think that, that is a really, really critical piece that a lot of young people are missing. I think a lot of them want to come to work. They want to work kind of if their contract says 9 to 5, they're there 9 to 5, the free lunch and all that other good stuff. I think it's really about showing that desire to understand the broader picture of the business, not just the piece that you're filling right now. And don't be afraid to say, I can do more. So push yourself. Don't,
love
it's the easy route is to sit back and say, I'm doing a great job with what I'm doing right now, right? I'm safe, I'm secure. I think sometimes having that courage to get out of your comfort zone is going to pay you back tenfold down the road. So, and you've got to be patient. That would be the other thing I would say. You have to earn it.
yeah.
So I think that that's somewhat kind of challenging for some of these young people. They want to be here when they're just starting here, right? So if you're here and you want to get here, if you put that a little bit of extra effort in, look for opportunities to grow and develop yourself and become engaged and try to add incremental benefit to an organization, you'll get here much faster.
I love it. Show up, right? Show up and
Show up
hear this.
every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be
Kelly,
curious. Yes.
yeah, Kelly, it is evident, and I personally experience that you do show up and you do get engaged. So with that, I can't tell you how grateful I am for your time today. Your little leadership piece of advice and action items are going to be great for many. And I'm going to let you get back to your day now. But thank you for taking the time to
Yeah.
be on the show. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, and it was great to connect.
Awesome. Thanks, Cal.
Thanks a lot, Jason.
If you loved that session and that conversation as much as I did, would love to have you join our People Playbook community in the link below.